Today I want to open with a question. What does it mean to be deep? What does it mean to be deep? When we get into deep Bible study, or someone gives us an idea from the Bible that is deep, what does that actually mean? And I've wondered about that, kind of through the years, because as a preacher, I've had people tell me, in response to a message, wow, it was really deep. I've known behind my back, other people have accused me of being shallow. So, and I always wonder, okay, what's the difference? And I think there is a difference. I think I've experienced the difference, so have you. But when it comes to our daily Bible engagement, I think most of us would want to be deep, but we're not going to get there unless we even know what it is. And I'm going to say that Second John gives us the opportunity, because beginning at verse 4, he says, I was very glad to find some of your children walking in the truth, just as we have received the commandment to do from the Father. Now, I ask you, lady, not as though I were writing to you a new commandment, but the one we have had from the beginning, that we love one another. And this is love, that we walk according to his commandments. This is the commandment, just as you have heard from the beginning, that you should walk in it. And there's a very interesting thing happening here, and this comes from my own reading, and I'm telling you, keep after it. I feel like I'm doing wax on, wax off, in The Karate Kid, for those of you even remember that keep reading the book of 2 John. We're going to go to 3 John next week. We're going to do one more day on 2 John, and we're going to shift to 3rd. But as you keep reading it, that's what I've been doing. What I've noticed and what's surfaced is the theme of truth, and it is the theme of love. And especially, this is what caught my eye. He says, I'm not writing you a new thing, a new commandment. I'm writing you something we've heard from the beginning, that we love one another. Now, I want you to imagine in your mind. Imagine maybe you have a little house church, or a small group that's meeting in your home, and somehow God works it out where you actually can get a letter from the Apostle John. This is the guy that walked with Jesus, was called by Jesus, that leaned up against Jesus at the Last Supper, took care of Jesus' mother. We're talking the Apostle John here. I mean, can you imagine getting a personal letter from him, where he's going to help you grow spiritually, and he's going to tell you what it means to grow deep? And then you open it up, and it's this one. It's 13 verses. It's just a short letter, but you'd still be super excited. Why? Because it's the Apostle John. This is not just from some guy down the street. This is the Apostle John and all that comes with that. So I want you to remember that. And then he says, I'm not writing you a new commandment. I'm going to remind you of one that we've had since the very, very beginning. That should be your indicator of what's deep. In other words, depth comes from the very first principle we talked about. You always have to remember and remind yourself, if you really want to engage with the Bible, that the Bible's claim about itself, that it is breathed out by God. And it was breathed out through people like the Apostle John. And if you did get a personal letter from the Apostle John, you'd be all over that thing. I mean, you'd be mesmerized by it. You should be. And if you're not, that means you're shallow. In other words, if someone got a letter from the Apostle John and just kind of read it like they do junk mail and threw it on the counter and walked away, the problem of depth is not on the side of the letter. The problem of depth is on the side of the receiver. And I think that's probably has something to do with it. That if you appreciate who this is, if you appreciate what it is, you listen to it with different ears. We do that all the time with people. If someone walks in and they've got a pedigree, or they've got a PhD, and they've done this or that in their life, and they're a heavy, and we know they're a heavy, we're going to listen to what they say. And even if what they say sounds like something we've heard before, we're going to interpret that thing with a lot more depth. And I love that about love. He could have said anything. He says, I'm not going to give you a new commandment. I'm not going to give you something new. I'm going to give you something you've heard from the very, very start. I ask that we love one another. And if we're being honest, most of us probably think, love one another. Come on, man, give me something that's kind of cool. Give me something mysterious. Give me something. But if he doesn't, and it's love one another, I'm going to say that that's the indication that love for one another is the deep thing. Because here's what depth is, in my mind. Depth, it literally means stopping, if you're in water, stopping and going down, stopping and going layer down into the different layers. So if someone like the Apostle John says, I'm not going to give you something new, I'm going to give you something old, and it's love one another, that's a note to self. This love one another thing is a pretty heavy deal. And if I don't think of it as a heavy deal, I'm the problem. It's not the text itself. See, personally, if I can throw this in as an editorial comment, I think one of the greatest problems we have in our current culture is a wrong definition of love. I think we talk about love a lot, and I think most of us don't even know what it is, because he goes on to say a very interesting thing, and this is love, that we walk according to his commandments. He, in the Bible, consistently does this. It makes love and following his commandments synonymous. And that's consistent throughout the New Testament and throughout the Bible. That actual love is obeying God's commandments. And my assignment to any of us would be, what's the difference between how we perceive love and how we define love as general? It seems like love is general niceness, and I'm going to let you do you and I'll do me, and that's it, and that's what we call love. But what is love if it really means walking according to his commandments? How are we defining love wrong? What's the real definition? And you could spend a lot of time on that. You could chase that through the whole Bible. One last note. That's why taking even a small little book like 2 John can take you through the rest of the Bible on a whole journey, because that 2 lines are beautifully deep. And if you want to go deep, you can stop and just think about that, pray about that. So remember, depth, often lack of it, is usually on our end. And so appreciate what you have in front of your eyes. Hope you have a great day.